Hey guys, thank you so much for sending in your questions. We are now going to answer a few of those, and feel free to send your questions at the website, Ty and That Guy. And the first question is, David Cheng asks, one thing I love about the show is the diversity of the cast. It's one of the few shows or movies where the future isn't full of white people. Can Ty talk a little bit about the casting? Was the diversity intentional, or did it just happen to turn out that way?
I mean, if it's not intentional, you wind up with a cast full of white people. I've talked about this before it's easy to see deliberateness in things that are not deliberate. I don't think that casting agents, in general, at least none that I've met, are racists who only want to cast white people. I think what you have, though, is you have a system that, like the farm system for actors, is a system that historically favored white people in America going into acting over other ethnicities going into acting. So you just had a lot more of one ethnicity, in this case, white people, who were young, upcoming actors. And so because that was the system that was in place, you have casting agents, their Rolodex, whatever their electronic Rolodex is that has all their names in it, has a ton of white people in it. So if you say, I'm looking for a 25-year-old female who can play a military person, the first 90 names in their Rolodex are white girls from, the Midwest who've moved out to LA to be actors. That's just a fact. And so if you're not very deliberate, if you don't say, I want a 25-year-old woman who can play a military character, I really need somebody who is Polynesian, Samoan or Hawaiian is fine, but somebody with that sort of Polynesian ethnicity for this part. If you don't say that, the first 90 names you'll get for the part will be white girls. And they're not doing anything wrong. The people who are trying out for those parts aren't doing anything wrong. The casting agent's not deliberately doing anything wrong. It's just the system is set up that way. And so to get the sort of diversity of cast that we have, you do have to be very specific. You have to say, this character is an Asian man. Please make sure we look at, some Asian male actors. Or, if you want, like gender diversity, like this is a non-binary character. You have to be very specific. We want a non-binary character for this part. Because there's not a ton of people in that category that traditionally have been in the casting agents' crosshairs. And I think casting agents are getting much better about it. Go ahead, Wes.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. So from we're obviously living in I think there's some positive changes that are happening within the industry. So from the first, we've been doing this for about 7 years. From the first year to this year, have you noticed any positive changes within the industry since we first started doing this?
Yeah, I think it has changed a lot. I think the casting agents who work with us, who by the way are great. I'm not bashing our casting agents. I think our people are fantastic. And once they learned the kind of casting we do on the show, they are partners with us on that. Now we say, hey, we need these 10 characters to play this like military unit. We want to make sure it's gender and ethnically diverse group for these 10 characters. That's what our casting people deliver now. So they have sort of learned what we want on the show, and they've definitely adjusted to that. But early on, you do have to fight for it early on. Once people start to understand what you're trying to do, I think then it gets a lot better, and I think people become your partner in that rather than you having to fight with them about it, for sure.
Excellent. Lynetta Artis asks, Wes, darling, I know you were super prepared in your work, but was there ever a scene that surprised you in how it developed on the day as opposed to in the script?
I want to say, Lynetta, that's actually a really interesting question. That's a really good question. I'm kind of curious what the answer is too.
And but thank you for calling me darling, Lynetta. So I'll say that I honestly hope that every day or every scene surprises me a little bit. I think that one of the traps in preparation, one of the failed steps in preparation is you prepare, you do as much work as you prepare, you do your research, you do your work. One of the steps that you can't forget to do is throw it all away when you walk on set, because you have no idea how the director decides they want to shoot this. You might imagine this whole scene in your head when you're in your apartment getting ready to go to work and just going over it in your head, and you might imagine you're sitting at a table having a conversation, but the director's like, we're going to do it on the move. So you have no idea how that other actor is going to react to you. Whenever you say something, you have to pay attention to how they're listening, how they're reacting, because it might make the scene completely different in tone. And I think the fun part is the surprise. And I try to engineer my preparation in a way to work towards the surprise. If I don't feel surprised, then I know I'm not listening properly. I know I'm not truly affecting my scene partner in the scene with what I'm trying to say, that there's not a strong intention behind it. Because if we're doing a canned performance where I was in my bubble creating something and they were in their bubble creating, and then I came and just did my bubble and they did theirs, and there's really no communication or nothing real happening within the scene. So you do the work, you throw it away, and hopefully you're surprised every single scene, every single time. It doesn't always work out that way, but sometimes it does.
That's a good answer, man. I find myself curious about that same thing. All right, Erik Strohmeyer wants to know, show is not a comedy, but there are funny moments. Most of them involve Amos. Ty, did you originally intend this character to carry so much of the humor that the show needs to keep it from being too dark? So here's the thing. Amos and I have a lot in common. I find humor in darkness, in tragedy, and I tend to deflect darkness with humor. And I think what we try to do in the show with Amos is have him do that. But I think the difference is Amos is a little less self-aware about it. So I think Amos is deflecting with humor and he doesn't know that's what he's doing. I think Amos is saying things that he thinks are true, because Amos always kind of says what he thinks is true. But often the circumstances will make it very funny that somebody had that observation in that moment. And one thing that Narain and I agree on is we hate when people joke about things that are serious. We hate jokiness about serious moments, because it just sucks all the drama out of it. It sucks all the reality out of it. When people are getting shot at and they're trading like jokey quips, what you're telling the audience is these people aren't afraid of getting shot. They don't think they're going to get shot. And then the audience loses all the suspense and drama of worrying about the characters. So we don't like that kind of humor. What we like is humor that arises naturally out of the situation. A dark moment and Amos making an observation about the dark moment that to the observer, it's very funny that he made that observation, but it doesn't undercut the tension of what's happening. It doesn't undercut the drama of what's happening. Nobody's joking about the fact that somebody's trying to kill them. That's what we're usually shooting for. And to be fair, Wes can do that job. If Wes wasn't as good with the timing and humorous delivery as he is, we would not write those lines for him. So give a big chunk of the credit to Wes for being good enough to take the lines that we want to give him. Because if we'd be giving those funny lines to somebody else if Wes couldn't handle it.